Hi, everybody. Welcome to Ecker Geopolitics. We are talking about the Iran war. Yes, the same story, same topic, but at the end of the day, different news every single day. And it's coming fast. We're going to look at the X algorithm for the next hour, hour and a half, and we're going to look at all of the biggest stories on X, all of the biggest stories that pertain to the Iran war, the strikes that Iran has recently taken on behalf of Tel Aviv. Gosh, mixing my words up. But we're going to talk about all of it, the entire war, and everything that's going on. So be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe, and we're going to be getting right into the news and all of the biggest stories in the Middle East. Yes, it is real March Madness on March 30th, 2026. Let's get right into the news. So I thought this video was crazy to start off with. Let's take a look at this. So massive destruction in Tel Aviv, buildings leveled. Reports indicate Iran was hunting an Israeli official in that sector. So let's take a look at this. This is just the beginning. We got lots of these videos over the past week, and it was quite a crazy week, wasn't it? A lot of big stories, a lot of big news. Just honestly insane. It's hard to believe that we're actually in this war. Trump is also deploying a pretty good number of soldiers. I think it was 10,000 to 20,000 or something like that. And he wants to do a ground operation, whether it be by Special Forces, the 160th Special Aviation Regiment, or the 82nd Airborne Regiment. He wants to send these units into Karg Island or essentially somewhere in the Persian Gulf, basically, but an island. And they want to, for some reason, put them there, like it's going to be a good idea. Meanwhile, all of this is happening, and Israel is not going to join the U.S. in ground forces against Iran. Isn't that interesting? So we know now that the Iranians have been hitting Israel pretty hard. So let's take a look at this video. Honestly wild. And of course, it's not going to load. That's the best. I love when videos don't load and you're live streaming. There we go. This is Tel Aviv. Tel Aviv's getting hit pretty hard. Yep. And that's just one story. And now we got many more. Yes, we have many more stories to go. So we're going to look at all of these. We're going to look at all of the biggest stories on X. Let's look at what we have bookmarked in here. So we looked at that video. Again, at the end of the day, this is insane. Okay, we have a lot of big stories. Again, we have the U.S. troops who are getting ready to die for Israel, according to Kim.com. This is his X account. He posted this 18 hours ago. But look at this. Look at the faces of these troops. Do they look happy to you? Do they look ready to fight? Would you go and fight? Yeah, I like this meme on the side here. There we go. Now you can kind of see it because my screen was blocking it. Look at that. The Make America Great Again hat on the right side of the screen. You see the troops walking into the red Make America Great Again hat, and then on the other side coming out is their coffin. And so you look at these facial expressions. You look at the comment section and what people are seeing, right? These faces are not the faces of men who want to go and fight and die for Israel. And that's just exactly what's happening. And so if you question that, you're called an anti-Semite. Well, I say that's ridiculous. I say that Israel should go and fight their own wars, right? I say that the United States has no business being in Iran. And the reason I think it's so important to bring this issue up is because these are all men who have families. All of these men are Americans. They have children, many of them at home. Look at their faces. This guy, oh my God, this guy, he does not look ready. Look at his face. But you look at all of these guys, and I see a sacrificial lamb. It's almost sickening to me because it seems like Trump wants them to die almost. And I hate to say this, but it's like, look at these expressions. Look at this. These people are in just total disbelief that they're even in this situation. Again, I had made a post about this saying that if anybody's going to go and fight this war, like they had to have done like the government had to have done studies on this exact specific type of personality type who would be willing to go and fight and die for Israel, a completely different foreign land, who hates you as Americans, and at the same time, we're getting nothing out of it. It's not like Normandy where it's like, yeah, these young men stormed the beach of Normandy. We lost a lot of great men, but we also won the war. There was some reasons behind it, you could argue. To me, there wasn't. I think there was the real Holocaust in World War II happened when 20 million Europeans died, and when 56% of the people who died were Christians, interestingly enough, way more than Jews. Jews had something about 271,000, and that's kind of the numbers we're looking at for the Holocaust. But then we look at Gaza today. We look at all of these atrocities that Israel is committing on Lebanon, dropping white phosphorus bombs in the air. And then you have Marco Rubio saying, hey, this is a good thing. This is a Judeo-Christian country. Again, Caroline Levin, she was the one who ended up making a statement that America is a Judeo-Christian society. Well, it isn't. But this is the mindset of our world leaders and why we are in this situation. So let's listen to this video from the Department of State just 10 hours ago. This is Marco Rubio.
And at the end of the day, I think that if there are people in Iran who now, given everything that's happened, are willing to move in a different direction for their country, that would be great. Imagine in Iran that instead of spending their wealth, billions of dollars supporting terrorists or weapons, had spent that money helping the people of Iran, you'd have a much different
it's such
country.
propaganda.
So we are always hopeful that that would exist over there.
They're going to really act like Iran was totally just the bad guys. See, America struck Iran first. We already know this. And because America struck Iran first, it created what we're seeing now. Okay, so that's why it's important to cover a lot of the newest breaking news on X so we can cipher through all of the disinformation, try to determine the truth, try to find out what's actually happening. Because in my opinion, I think what I see, I see Israel getting pretty pummeled right now. And it doesn't look like their military capabilities are going to be able to keep up with Iran. And they're going to have to lean on the United States. And again, how sickening is it that the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, they basically said that they're not going to join and fight with the U.S. troops against Iran. I could tell you what, if I was drafted into this war, I would tell you, I would go AWOL. I don't even think I'd go AWOL. I think I would I would turn on my... I would turn on Israel. I would put everything towards Israel. It'd be the dumbest thing to recruit somebody like me because I would sabotage the entire army. I would sabotage everybody. I'd get everybody fighting against Israel. And then we would revolt and we'd take that entire country down. And so that's how I would be. If you ever drafted me into the military, I'm not going to be fighting or dying for Israel anytime soon. And this whole draft thing that they want to do, no, we're not going to go and fight and die for Israel's wars when they're not even willing to fight their own wars. They can't even take on the heat of the Hezbollah right now. So let's take a listen to this video. The IDF took what appears to be unprecedented action against the battalion involved in my team's assault and detention. In many ways, that's due to our position as U.S. journalists. In too many cases involving Palestinian journalists and civilians, we've seen a lack of accountability.
Spending the entire battalion from operations in the West Bank, sending them back for training, all of that happening within 48 hours of our report airing. In addition, Meir, that soldier that you saw speaking about revenge, about helping illegal settler outposts become legal, he has been dismissed from the Israeli military altogether. Totally. The soldier who assaulted my cameraman, Cyril Theophilus, he is under investigation now by Israel's military police. We will follow, of course, the results of that investigation. But I do think it's important to note that the swiftness and the scale of this response is only really happening in large part because of who we are. Because we are journalists working for an American news network, we have seen incidents similar to this before involving Palestinian journalists where there is no accountability. We have also
much more than that. They've bombed Palestinian journalists. They've bombed U.S. journalists.
Watch as settler violence in the West Bank has continued to increase at a dramatic pace. And on that count as well, we have not yet heard a sufficient response from the Israeli military about what they are going to do to counter that growing settler violence against Palestinians. And that is also an issue that we will continue to cover extensively. Becky?
And don't forget about the violence that's being portrayed against perpetrated against the Lebanese people. All the people in Lebanon right now, they are taking massive flack from the state of Israel. And really, and many of them are Christian villages, completely innocent Christian villages. So now I want you to imagine in your hometown, which is probably some kind of Christian town, most likely, and in your town, now imagine you have these Israelis bombing everything, exploding everything simultaneously, your entire village, imagine it. Homes, just berated, just wrecked, everything just destroyed, like destroyed. And then they call you the terrorist, and then they take your home. This is what these people are doing. This is what the Israeli people are doing to the Lebanese people. And on top of that, they're dropping, again, I keep saying this because it's so important to reiterate, they're dropping white phosphorus bombs over the sky. And these white phosphorus bombs basically act as sulfuric acid. They're burning right through the skin, right through the bone. And so the only reason I talk about this so deeply, this issue, this Israeli issue, needs to be discussed from a position of counterterrorism and national security. Any cop who really cares about this country, if you're a police officer who loves America and Christianity, then this should be the number one fight, because this is absolutely the number one national security threat to the United States is the current state of Israel, because they are getting us into all of these different wars. They are starting wars with countries we never even had beef with. And again, when it comes to Trump, he withdrew from the nuclear deal, right? The Iran nuclear deal that Barack Obama already had in place. And I'm not glazing over Obama. I hated Obama. But at the same time, the one thing Obama did good is he had this nuclear proliferation agreement signed and agreed to, and the Israelis hated that. They didn't like it. They didn't like that this was done because it did not allow them to have a nuclear missile. Well, guess what? That's why they killed JFK. Yes, Israeli intelligence services. That's who killed JFK. That's a fact. And it's all over the CIA documents. So nobody can tell you that that's not true. The only people who will tell you that that's true, that's not true, is perhaps AI. They'll call it an anti-Semitic trope, or the only thing you're going to find where you don't find that to be true is conventional mainstream media. So other than that, you have to understand that this war is a psychological war. This is absolutely a war of counterterrorism. This is what we're dealing with. The state of Israel is the true largest sponsor of terror in the world. Okay, and a lot of people don't want to believe that. They refuse to believe that, but it's a fact. The modern state of Israel is the greatest threat to sovereignty on the planet. And so they're genociding all of these different countries. Kevin Sorbo said, Canada just criminalized reading the Bible. Now quoting scripture on marriage, sin, or God's design for sexuality can be prosecuted as a willful promotion of hatred. This is now the West Falls. So yeah, U.S. Department of Labor proposes rule to open $10 trillion 401k retirement plans to crypto and alternative investments. Hey, that's awesome. So there's some good news. Crypto seems to be the only good news today. If you would have watched my other channel, the Brandon Ecker Influence, or just Brandon Ecker on YouTube, you would have been able to watch that video. I try to make these market updates every day, 11 a.m. Sometimes I make it, sometimes I don't. Again, I'm pretty busy with real estate, busy with Gold Shark Media AI, where we help businesses get leads, SEO, promo, and deal flow, all these things, right? So I was busy. Benjamin Netanyahu says Christians overacted to Israel shutting down the Church of the Holy Sepulchre on Palm Sunday, and that he is pro-Christian policy. Netanyahu says Iranian missile fragments landed near the church, leaving him no choice but to shut it down for national security reasons. Netanyahu says he is limiting the number of people so that if an Iran attack occurs, only a few people will be affected. Our goal is to protect Christians. Yeah, right. That's just not even true at all.
Well, what happened?
They were blocking people from getting into the churches, to my understanding. That was exactly what was happening. There was not any effort to, spare the Christians or the Gazans or the Palestinians. There was no effort of such. And at the end of the day, this is what we're dealing with.
The Iranians have been firing missiles at the old city of Jerusalem, where you have the Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of the holiest places for Islam, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, one of the holiest places for Christianity, and the Western Wall, which is the holiest place for Judaism. And the fragments nearly hit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So as a result, the Israeli security authorities said, okay, let's take out the worshipers right now because they'd be hurt. There's no protection there. And that was a general instruction that applied to the Jewish places, to the Muslim places, and to the Christian places. And that was the reason that a police officer on duty said, oh, okay,
the same police officers that you've been droning and dropping bombs on, who have been trying to give aid to the Palestinians, the Gazans. Come on now, Netanyahu.
Applying it also to the patriarch. Now, look, I think that was, I can understand the concern for his safety, and that was the only concern. There was no malice here, no bad intention, unlike the press reports. But nevertheless, I said, despite this concern, I gave an instruction immediately, the minute I heard about it. No, he should be free, the patriarch, to come with his party and perform services as he wishes. There's a risk there, and we're trying to minimize it. So
There's a risk there.
I'm trying to get through the holiday season to try to get some worshipers to be able to worship in these sites, but in limited numbers, Jewish places as well. Limit the numbers so that if we have an attack, as few as possible people would be hurt. So it really it's just the opposite. I mean, our goal is to protect Christians.
Yeah, right.
Our goal is to protect worshipers of every faith. And
It
our
doesn't look
policy
that way on X
has been
at the videos we're about to watch.
absolutely pro-Christian. The complete opposite of the slander that is being foisted at us. You look at the Middle East and you see in every country the Christians.
You just poisoned the Gazans' water, their entire shoreline. The Israeli people basically poisoned it and contaminated it, so they couldn't have drinking water. And these are the same people who were making Palestinian people, Palestinian kids, carry a bucket of water and beg for water. If you ask me, I think that Iran needs to take out Israel's desalination plants, and we need to put the Israelis in the position that they put the Gazans in. The Israelis should be there begging for water, treated like animals, the way that they have treated their victims like animals. There should be an eye for an eye, and that's just my opinion. Because this is all gaslighting. This is the typical response from the Israeli people.
Are shrinking. Their number is shrinking. Right. They're oppressed. They're in very bad shape. Many of them leave. The only place where the Christian population has grown and the Christian community thrives, they serve, a Christian judge serves on the Supreme Court. They're in our Knesset, in our parliament. They're in the champions of our industry. They lead in indicators of higher education. They lead. That's because of the policy, and the policy is frankly the one that I am leading because of our general policy towards interfaith freedom, but also our affinity with Christianity.
Affinity? You don't have an affinity with Christianity, and we're about to watch a ton of videos proving that. Trump pardons nursing home operator Joseph Schwartz, convicted of a $39 million fraud scheme just 3 months into a 3-year prison term. Victims haven't been able to collect from Schwartz. Of course. Japanese Twitter X is so unexpectedly wholesome. We've been seeing a ton of Japanese videos popping up on X. This is the new trend this week on X, is we've been seeing a spike in Japanese content creators. So let's take a look. It is pretty wholesome.
My dear overseas friends from all around the world. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your wonderful support.
I'd much rather, see these people on my Twitter X algorithm than seeing, just violent, angry, do I have to say it?
Even though we are separated by oceans and time zones, every like, comment, and kind message you send reaches me and fills my heart with joy.
That's so nice. How come Japanese people are capable of being so kind and nice, and then we have the foreigners in our country who are just horrible, and they have absolutely no decorum, they have absolutely no respect, and then you have the Japanese people. Why are the Japanese people so awesome?
Knowing that classical male lovers in so many countries are watching and cheering me on truly motivates me to keep creating. You make this wonder parlor feel like a global tea party. I promise to continue bringing you
some of these look like they're
elegant
AI too, though.
moments, lovely outfits, and heartfelt
Who knows?
content.
I've been seeing a lot of
Thank you
AI
again
shit.
for being part
A lot
of
of
my
AI
journey.
stuff on X.
With all my love and gratitude, your classical mate, Wonder Parlor.
Still cool. The Japanese people are so pleasant. Okay, back to the breaking news. The Houthis have joined the war, and they've just carried out a massive missile attack onto Israel. What are your thoughts on this? So this is Alex Barnicoat with another update. This was just last night. Let's take a listen.
Some breaking news. The Houthis have joined the war and they've just carried out a massive missile attack onto Israel. But as well as that, they're planning to shut the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which will cause more economic damage than Iran shutting the Strait of Hormuz. The Houthis said, quote, "Our strikes will continue until our declared objectives are achieved." In other words, they've declared war on Israel and the Americans now. But something you need to know is that only 2 days ago, the Houthis announced that if the US launches a ground invasion into Iran, like reports say they will, then they will shut the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. That is one of the most important waterways in the world, because if they shut that, then no ships would be able to use the Mediterranean, the Suez Canal, the Red Sea, etc. Ships would have to sail all the way around Africa, which will put the price of things up for you and will take 3 times longer to arrive. And there's a very high chance that this could happen. Polymarket, a place where you can predict world events,
crazy, 43% chance here.
There's a 43% chance of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait being shut by the end of next month. That is a massive increase from just 2 days ago, mainly because they've now declared war and carried out a missile attack onto Israel. Reports say some of those missiles actually did land and they hit Israeli military sites in
Oh yeah, they hit a lot. And we're going to see all those videos. There's a ton of them.
southern Israel. One of the most likely targets was the Nevatim airbase in southern Israel. It's where Israeli F-35 fighter jets take off from in order to carry out attacks against Iran, even the Houthis in Yemen, etc. And so, the Houthis have officially joined the war, and they've become one of the first countries following the Iraqi PMF to join the war in support of Iran. And so we are very close towards a World War III type of situation now. And I mean, that sounds worse than it is, but there's so many countries involved now. And so, leave me a follow because I'm going to keep you up to date on this and everything you need to know that happens in this war.
Oh, things are heating up. Call to action from Joe Kent. Tell President Trump, your congressional representative, and your senators that you do not support American boots on ground in Iran. White House comment line is 202-456-1111, and the Congress switchboard is 202-224-3121. This is how we, the people, make our voices heard. Again, this is Joe Kent. He is a CIA agent, and I think CIA agent, CIA officer, and then he's also former special ops. So, you know, some people have a mixed opinion on Joe Kent because he was CIA. I have my own beliefs on CIA. I think the CIA has its potentials. I think it has some positive things to it, but a lot of negatives to it at the same time. So let's take a listen to what Joe Kent said. I don't really know if we can trust Joe Kent, right? But I think I've been liking a lot of the stuff he's been saying. Again, special ops, served his country, lost his wife in Syria. Let's take a listen to what he has to say.
This week, President Trump will be under immense pressure to commit ground troops to the war in Iran. This would be a catastrophic escalation that will only result in more bloodshed and further escalate this disastrous war. It is critical that we, the people, have our voices heard. Contact the White House comment line, contact the congressional switchboard, ask for your representative, ask for your senators. Respectfully tell them that we do not support putting any boots on the ground in Iran. This is how we, the people, can have our voices heard. It's critical that we pray for peace, but it's also critical that we work towards peace. Respectfully contact your elected officials and let them know we, the people.
It's funny. I already tried making that phone call earlier today, but the lines were busy because I had literally seen that this had come out like within that first half an hour of him posting it. And then basically the lines were like totally jammed up. So everybody's calling.
Do not support this war. Thank you. God bless.
Yeah, we shouldn't support this. We should not support this war. I mean, strategically and militarily, it makes no sense, and it's just going to lead to a lot of dead U.S. troops for no reason. Just absolutely, something we don't need to deal with. I kind of thought that was funny. I thought it was trash. All the Japanese accounts are just great. I think they're hilarious. So you have like on the left, you have a picture of bowing Muslims. This is all just fun. We're having fun here. No racism. And then on the right, you see like the garbage bags. I'm sorry, but it's like, come on. You're doing this in public. As a Muslim, that's horrible. Don't, seriously, if you're going to be a Muslim, don't be praying in public like that. Do you think anybody, you don't see Christians going over to Muslim countries and doing that. You don't see Christians, if they do, they go on a missionary. It's a controlled environment. They kind of stick to the churches, but they're not being, so imposing that they're doing their entire call to prayer at 5 a.m., screaming it for everybody in the villages to hear. You know, they're not taking up the streets of New York City and deliberately imposing Sharia law and this entire psychological thing. I think it's really sick, and I don't like it. You know, at the same time, I still think Christians and Muslims we do need to unite against the Zionist coalitions, because those Zionist coalitions are working against both the Muslim and the Christian communities, and they believe that they will put the Christians and the Muslims at war with one another in a war called Gog and Magog. Okay, and so the way that this story goes is that the Christians and the Muslims will fight one another, and then they will eventually realize that it was the Jews, and then they will fight the Jews, and then it will roll out their Messiah, and so that's their belief, and this is the Gog and Magog story. So, honest to God, though, it's like if we don't unite as Muslims and Christians, then we're going to be in a not so good situation, right? So, again, that meme was just for fun. We're just having fun. We can laugh at other religions. We can laugh at ourselves. We can laugh at whatever, because it's called freedom of speech. That's the whole point. IDF terrorists just bombed ambulances in Sour, Lebanon. Over 51 paramedics have been killed by Israel so far. So remember, the Israeli people are the same people telling you that you need to be okay with the Christian villages being genocided, and that if you question any of it, you're anti-Semitic. You know, and again, then you see videos like this where 51 paramedics, and this is their neighbors, Lebanon, like the border of Israel, Lebanon. And here, this is what they're doing. You know, absolutely evil. That's not okay. You can't accept that. The fact that Grok, if I were to say any of this and suggest that this was a total genocide that was happening in Gaza and Hezbollah combined, it's the same thing. You know, what I hate the most is that Grok is going to tell me that, oh, that's an anti-Semitic trope. That's an anti-Semitic trope. Oh, what you're saying is an anti-Semitic trope, and you're not allowed to say that. That's not true. But it is true. It'll always end up being true, because you could, you know, the other week I put like 20 different web links of proof, evidence, rabbis talking and confessing these things, and several different rabbis all admitting all of this stuff. And then I, of course, provided documentation, just like 20, 30 links at least into Grok. And I was just curious, if I just do 20, 30 videos of pure proof that these Zionists are truly out to destroy the United States with what they call Amalek or Edom, then I feel like people could wake up. But then again, what happens next? You get censored by that point, right? So that's the battle we're really up against. In the meantime, Stand for Health Freedom posted, Thomas Massey is sounding the alarm. Congress is on the brink of passing a liability shield for pesticides companies like Bayer, who gave Americans cancer. Bayer is a foreign company, but Congress wants to give them total immunity to poison Americans with glyphosate. This is not to grant farmers immunity. This is to grant corporations immunity. If farmers contract a form of cancer, or if farmers contract a form of cancer or a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma from this chemical, this makes it into a farm bill. You won't be able to sue for that. This liability shield would be a complete betrayal of the Maha movement. So, what do you guys think? There's still time to fight back. We need all your hands on deck. And so this was Thomas Massey and his statements on that.
That makes glyphosate. This is not to grant farmers immunity. This is to grant the corporation immunity if they give farmers contract a form of cancer or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma from this chemical. If this makes it into the farm bill, you won't be able to sue for that. And I know they're dealing with some similar legislation at the state level.
Yep.
One of the things in the farm bill, I'm still trying to get out of it.
Footage shows the inhumane bombardment of residential areas in Tehran by the U.S. and Israel. So that was 7 hours ago. The United States struck Iran. Again, footage shows the inhumane bombardment of the residential areas in Tehran. Yep, that's the war. There it is. It's getting crazy. Getting crazy. This is the cost of what happens, Donald Trump, when you decide to go to Epstein Island and do irresponsible things as somebody with power, money, status, and leadership. I think Trump is just another example of a Bill Clinton or a George W. Bush, unfortunately, where they were so powerful that they believed they could do anything they want. And when I say that, I don't mean by just going to war with Iran whenever you want and things like that. I'm talking more about what we found in the Epstein files to be true, or possibly true, right? Allegedly true. So we're going to find out. But how come nobody else gets held accountable? It's always the white Christians, for some reason today, who have to go fight a war for Israel and die for Israel. And the Israelis believe that. I could pull up a video of a Jew telling you basically that it is the United States soldiers' role to fight and die for Israel. And so Israelis just believe this, that you're supposed to just go and die for Israel. That's just what you do, you cattle, you animal. And that's what they think. This is like their real belief. And if you don't believe me, then we could always type it in on X. We'll go down a whole rabbit hole. But first, I wanted to get through these stories for sure. They're diluting gas. So let's listen to this.
E15 fuel. The federal government just confirmed that they are about to start diluting your gasoline this May. So basically,
Shit.
the
No
EPA
way.
just announced that starting on May the 1st, gas
That's not
stations
good.
across the country can sell E15 fuel nationwide. If you're somebody that doesn't know what E15 fuel is, it's gasoline that's cut with 15% ethanol instead of just the usual 10. And you literally cannot make this up right now because they are calling it fortifying the domestic fuel supply, which is a really weird way to say that you're just going to
Yep.
be adding more corn juice to people's gas.
EPA has
horrible.
issued emergency waivers.
Yeah, so how are they going to avoid $8 gas prices when oil prices hit $200 a barrel? Well, they're going to water down your gasoline. And that way, there'll still be the same amount of volume in there in the tank. You just won't have gas in there. It'll just be, instead of a full tank, you'll pay $6 a gallon. This will be in probably a few months to a year. When we're still in this war, probably a few months. You'll probably 3 months to 6 months, I would guess. If we're on the same route that we are on now, you're going to see gas prices hit somewhere around $6-7 a gallon. And that's when people I could be able to survive.
For gasoline blends like E15.
It's going to get bad.
Now this is why it actually matters to you, because ethanol has less
Listen to
energy
this.
than regular gasoline, so your car gets worse fuel economy on E15. The entire point of this is that you might be saving about 25 cents per gallon at the pump, but you're burning through it faster, so obviously the savings just cancels itself out. But this is the part that genuinely nobody's talking about, because the EPA normally bans E15 during the summer because ethanol evaporates
E15.
faster in heat and creates more smog. They explicitly know this, but they just decided to waive their own rule that they made anyways because gas prices are high right now and people are angry.
Yep.
And if you're somebody that owns an older car, a lawnmower, a boat, or a chainsaw, they're saying to be careful because E15 can mess up those engines. So they're making your gas cheaper by just making it worse. Is that even surprising at this point?
No, because they need you to get an electric car. Until you get an electric car, it's basically not, it doesn't make sense. You got to have an electric car. It's got to drive you around everywhere you go. You have to have no autonomous ability. And yeah, that's kind of what's going on. This is huge news. So this was just 5 hours ago. This is really recent. The Israeli Knesset has passed a death penalty law targeting Palestinian prisoners. Naturally, Ben Gvir tried to pop champagne on the floor to celebrate. Guards stopped him. What the law does: mandates death by hanging for Palestinians convicted of killing Israelis in acts of classified as terrorism. No pardon possible. Does not require a unanimous verdict. Execution must be carried out within 90 days of sentencing. Like, I don't know. Reading that makes my head spin. Reading something like that is just like, okay, these are the bad guys, clearly. Like, not badass guys. Like, they're just the bad guys. These are not the good guys. Like, clearly. Mandates death by hanging for Palestinians convicted of killing Israelis in acts of classified as terrorism. Okay, but what is terrorism? Okay, in the counterterrorism definitions of terrorism, terrorism is a financial, political, or religious means, a purpose, a reward of some sort, an outcome, a vision. It is some sort of movement. And it is for these three things: politics, finance, power, all of these things, religion. These things kind of all come together, and it creates this thing called terrorism. And that's where the statement comes from, that one person's patriot is another person's terrorist, and one person's terrorist is another country's patriot. You know? So with terrorism, it's a subjective and vague term. And the Israelis always do this in the Knesset. They create these vague, definitions of what these things are. Kind of like anti-Semitism and the anti-Semitism laws in the United States. How they make, anti-Semitism out to be like it is the worst thing in the world, where it is the most demonic thing, where it is just horrible. But nobody's anti-Semitic. Nobody ever was before they started getting called anti-Semitic because they were questioning the state of Israel. So look at this. You see these videos, and then you're supposed to call them the good guys. Very weird behavior.
התקבלה בקריאה השנייה והשלישית, והחוק ייכנס לספר החוקים של מדינת ישראל.
That's crazy. The guy literally popped a bottle of champagne celebrating the fact that they were going to be killing Palestinians that they are going to label terrorists. People who had their homes stolen from them, people who had children slaughtered in front of them, parents and mothers and fathers, same thing. These people, again, treated like animals, forced to carry a bucket of water, hold it out like there's some animal at a trough, and literally there's videos of this everywhere on X. And again, we'll go look them up. You want to see them? I'll pull them right up now. But the real issue is, there needs to be action against it. We have a president who is condoning it. We have Marco Rubio who is condoning it. He is Jewish, right? You have J.D. Vance who has an Indian wife, but he's white, he's Christian, so he says. But here's the thing, he was an ever-Trumper, and that doesn't even matter. The real point is, who is J.D. Vance? Who finances J.D. Vance? Well, I would bet that the person who finances J.D. Vance is probably somebody like Peter Thiel. It's probably going to be a lot of the PayPal Mafia crew. And once people figure this out, you're going to be on a different path. You're going to be on the path of the truth. And so until you figure that out, you're just going to be struggling. So with that being said, that's just the way things are. While our country is at war, our airports are a mess, DHS is not funded, and our elections are not secure. Lindsey Graham is wandering around Disney World with a bubble wand. This is an image that should live in infamy. Important to note that Lindsey Graham does not have children, to my knowledge, and he also does not have a wife. The rumor is that Lindsey Graham is gay, and so that's what people are saying. I'm not saying that. That is a rumor. That is speculative, but hey, because this guy is so for Israel and so Israel first, I figured, what the hell? This guy wouldn't care that this dirty American's talking about him, right? Just in, Israeli Knesset passes controversial law authorizing the execution of Palestinian prisoners, again, treated like they're dogs in cages, and then we are called the terrorists for speaking out against it. They are called terrorists because they are victims. Right? Not because they were bombing anything, not because they were trying to, force regime changes in all these different countries, exactly like Israel is doing with Lebanon and Syria and Turkey and Iran and all these different countries for the Greater Israel Project. No. And the United States and Ukraine, all of these proxy wars that are basically being fought so Jews can benefit. Thank you, Donald Trump. You did this to the world, and that's coming from somebody who voted for Trump 3 times. And so many people are going to be like, oh, you're an idiot. You voted for Trump 3 times. How did you not know? It's like, no, you're an idiot, dude. Like, the reason people voted for Trump 3 times is because at the end of the day, it's like the things he was running on was not the same as what he's doing now. His actions are not matching what he made his promises for, right? So, and again, we really recognized this back in 2020 because Trump had, again, he withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal. And this had created essentially this entire war. That's when the war went hot. So with that being said, what do you think is coming next? Well, I think you're going to see either Iran strike Israel and their desalination plants, or it is going to be the U.S. and Israel. And the U.S. and Israel allegedly already struck Iran's desalination plants. So they hit Iran before they could even hit them at that point. But allegedly, Iran has been winning this war badly, and Israel is basically outgunned, outnumbered, and basically getting defeated. Absolute humiliation for Israel. While a massive fire ravages from their southern chemical plants, a desperate Netanyahu announces he is expanding the buffer zone to Lebanon. They are literally stealing more land because they are ethnic cleansers. So, again, all subjective opinions. We're reading different opinions off of Twitter X, but I can't necessarily disagree.
Against its northern neighbor.
We are in the midst of an operation consisting of multiple fronts. We are hitting Iran and its proxies with immense power.
Yeah, we'll see Netanyahu. Is Netanyahu even alive?
Existing buffer zone in Lebanon.
Like, honestly, do we even know if this guy's alive? We know his son. We know his brother was killed. Netanyahu's brother is confirmed dead. He died in a strike. So why wouldn't Netanyahu have been there? I'm just saying. Or is it all just a psyop? Is it really good AI videos? Are these pre-made videos that were made weeks or months in advance of this war? You have to understand, a war is a real estate deal. War is the economy. And the only people who disagree with that are people who are stupid or they're in on it. And that's what it is. How much money does it cost to uniform a U.S. soldier? About $25,000. And today, probably even more with all the new tech. So I would venture to say maybe $30,000. You know, how much money does it actually cost to build a nuclear missile? A lot of money. How much, rare earth elements need to be mined in order for these missiles to be created? In order for these, systems to be launched? All of it. It requires all of it. So, again, in the meantime, Israel's not doing so hot. Let's take a look.
In order to dismantle once and for all the threat.
Again, we kind of looked at that already. So, Fed Chair Jerome Powell warns U.S. national debt is growing substantially faster than the economy and says it is not sustainable. It will not end well if something is not done very soon. So, what are they going to do? I think it's going to end up coming down to crypto. And one of these things I think is going to happen is going to be XRP. Ripple will become a fully regulated and operational national trust bank, and there isn't anything anyone can do about it or approve about it. OCC final rule affects April 1st. So, pretty interesting stuff. XRP seems to be taking over the market despite Brian Armstrong taking over Coinbase and basically stating that, oh yeah, we want 35% of our stablecoin yields, so we're gonna basically not let the Clarity Act go through because we want to collect 35% on stablecoin yield. It's like, yeah, that's fine. You can collect your stablecoin yield. You can collect 4 or 5%, but it's like, you're getting 35%, Brian Armstrong, of your staking. Where's my 35%? I don't get no 35%. I get 4 to 5% APY maybe. So it's like, I don't feel bad for these people at all. Ugh. So ultimately, I just think it's going to be a massive war. I think there's going to be a lot of crazy information, crazy things coming out. Why Israeli air defenses keep falling against Israel's missiles. So let's take a look at this.
Up is the long-range aero missile defense system. Now let's take a look how the Israeli defense system works. The Israeli defense system consists of 3 tiers. First up is the long-range aero missile defense system, which was designed specifically with Iranian missiles in mind. Each of these system rockets costs a few $1 million, and they can intercept missiles outside the Earth's atmosphere, resulting in enhanced protection. The second layer of defense is the so-called David Sling system, designed for taking out missiles and drones. Finally, the Iron Dome stops most short-range rocket attacks in Israel. Let's take a look at why the Iron Dome failed to intercept the Iranian ballistic missiles.
This is cool.
Apart from discussing the multi-layered missile defense system, the Iron Dome itself has a range of around 40 miles, while the David Sling can intercept ballistic missiles up to a range of 180 miles. The top-tier Arrow anti-ballistic missile systems can target threats up to 1,500 miles away.
Damn.
According to
That's
reports,
crazy.
180 ballistic missiles, which are possibly hypersonic as claimed by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, were launched. Although the Arrow missile defense system successfully intercepted many missiles before they reached Israel, many still got through. The main problem behind the failure to intercept was after the detachment of the glide vehicle from the launcher. The glide vehicle can change its trajectory multiple times, which confused the Arrow missiles. This maneuver also bypassed the David Sling and finally the Iron Dome system, which is not designed to counter hypersonic missiles like the Fata 2 model. Let's examine the cost implications of a single day of missile attacks. Iran
Wow.
expended over $200 million by launching
200
ballistic
million.
missiles along with drones, whereas the IDF spent $1 billion to defend itself.
That's a lot of money.
This
1
includes
billion
the Arrow
versus
missile,
$1 billion Israel spent on their military versus, what was that again? Was it like 100 million, he said? 200 million? Yeah, 200 million, yeah.
technology.
Wow, that's
This
crazy.
ballistic missiles cost around $200,000 each, and its drones only $20,000 to $50,000 each. The Arrow missile defense system consists of 3 basic parts: the missile launcher unit, the Green Pine radar antenna, and the Arrow missile. The missile launcher unit is composed of 6 Erector launcher
That's
tubes
insane.
housing ready-to-fire missiles. Positioned at the rear of a 2-axle trailer, each launcher, when fully loaded with 6 launch tubes carrying ready-to-fire missiles, weighs 35 tons. The Green Pine radar serves as the warning and fire control radar for the Arrow 3 anti-ballistic air defense missile system. It plays a crucial role in target detection and guidance. The Arrow operates as a 2-stage missile. Let's look inside this engineering technology. This is the solid propellant booster and sustainer rocket motors. At the rocket's peak sits the ignition chamber, triggering the combustion of the solid propellant when activated.
And again, think about how much money the United States military spends to make all of this on our soil, where everything is extremely expensive. But for all of these other countries, it's not that expensive to make it. Again, for Israel and all these other countries, maybe it is, but some of these countries, because they use their own currency and they're kicked out of using the U.S. dollar in many cases, then they have
Propellant
to
isn't just any
adhere
substance.
to this.
It's a meticulously crafted blend of fuel and oxidizer
so
poured into a
tired.
casing and then cured. Encasing this blend is a protective shell called the motor case. At the core of the rocket lies the propellant burning zone. Here, the solid fuel and oxidizer react, producing incredibly high temperature
amazing,
combustion
right?
gases, which helps to launch the rocket at incredible speed above the Earth's surface. Moving further to the front, the most important part of the missile is the kill vehicle, which can be divided into 3 basic parts. The second stage is the propulsion system with a thrust vectoring nozzle.
Yep.
Just above it is the warhead, a directed high explosive fragmentation weighing 150 kilograms, which translates to 330 pounds.
Damn.
The third stage is the seeker, capable of pivoting itself to track its target. But what's the big deal about this long-range anti-ballistic missile system? Let's start with the propulsion system. The famous THAAD, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, uses a divert attitude control thrusters. In comparison
that's
to
like
the
some
Arrow
Elon
3
stuff. That's like Elon's tech right there. That's like the Falcon 9 rockets. Those rockets that literally that you know, they can fly out and then they can come right back down, they can land. They're using those thrusters. It's definitely some Lockheed Martin
stage
stuff.
is the propulsion system
Pretty
with a
cool.
thrust vectoring nozzle. Explosive pivoting itself.
Sorry. Find our spot here.
Terminal High Altitude Area Defense uses a divert attitude control thrusters. In comparison to the Arrow 3 kill vehicle, which utilizes a thrust vectoring nozzle with a solid fuel rocket,
awesome.
it has a shorter and more limited burn time. It has a few advantages, one of them being the ability to compensate for a lack of radar accuracy. When the radar sends the interceptor to an inaccurate target location, the Arrow 3 kill vehicle can adjust its trajectory.
Yeah, and this is what's been happening to a lot of Iran's missiles. The Iron Dome, Israel's Iron Dome, has not been working. So they've
Since
just been getting
intercontinental
right around
ballistic
these
missiles
these
travel at very
anti-missiles.
high speeds, the kill vehicle must change its trajectory based on newer, more accurate radar data from its seeker. A failure to fully divert the course to the new target would result in a failure to intercept. We make original videos from scratch and animated by humans, so please subscribe
Crazy.
to not miss a beat.
And so that is really the defense situation of Israel and their Iron Dome. Why a lot of the Hezbollah technology is getting right through the Iron Dome. Israel released footage of its invading forces demolishing villages in southern Lebanon as part of its objective to expand the 8-kilometer buffer zone. Netanyahu already admitted this plan: clear out and destroy Lebanese civilian towns. This isn't security. Watch this evil invasion, occupation, and ethnic cleansing in real time. Again, this is from Hala Jaber. This isn't security. Watch for, okay, we read that. Pure, arrogant terrorism in broad daylight. The IDF films its own war crimes and posts them proudly like victory reels. Yeah, seriously. Isn't that insane? So when you see this happening, if you ever see this kind of explosion developing in your hometown, wherever you're at, maybe sometimes it's not an accident, you know? When you see a Little House on the Prairie kind of explosion of the village, you know, if you've ever seen the show, you'll know what I'm talking about. That is the Israelis right there. This is the forte of the Israelis is explosives. That's more what they're good at, more what they're specialized in. Did you know that in special ops, our Navy SEALs have trained with IDF and the Israeli Defense Force? And essentially, that is kind of how the division of labor is divided. You have one group, the Americans, and we focus on the ground warfare, guerrilla warfare, and a lot of time the Air Force. And then you have your competitors. You have the people who are fighting with you. U.S. bomb triple-tapped girls to U.S. rebound triple-tapped girls school after rebombing kids park. That's insane. What Epstein coalition kink to kill children is that? So again, I mean, listen, as a Christian, I obviously don't approve of a lot of the different groups of Muslims that you see coming, you know, forcing their way into European countries and American countries. Then they're forcing their call of prayer to be accepted by everybody. Yet they're doing it right in front of a church, right in front of a school, right in front of a grocery store. And it's just like absolutely obnoxious, right in your face. Yeah, I don't think so. That's not going to work. You know, if we're ever going to unite against the common enemy, then Muslims and Christians there needs to be some kind of living space, or then there needs to be none at all. You know, it needs to be one of the two. And so, yeah, U.S. bomb triple-tapped girls' school after rebombing kids' park. So, look at this. See, they always keep saying the U.S. did it, the U.S. did it, the U.S. did it. But, you know, haven't we recognized a pattern yet that it's always Israel who's behind every string? You know, the United States only has so much power. You know, I mean, and then they go and say, they turn around and they say, well, the Israelis only have so much power. It's this back and forth doublespeak. But we already know who has the real power. It's the state of Israel. And the only way that the state of Israel is going to go down is if enough people speak the truth about this kind of stuff that's happening. And for me, I didn't want to speak the truth about any of this. I didn't want to bring this up. I could have just run my AI company. I could have just run my software company. We were doing really good. We were making sales. It was no problem for me. I could have avoided all of this. But there was something really important about talking about this issue. You know, being a cop, I think, you know, I feel that the oath I took has something to do with this time. You know, I see the people dying on anywhere in the world. And it makes you realize that, okay, there's something more we could do here. There's this lower level energy, this lower level force who's truly bringing everything else down. And it's trying to crawl up like the devil himself, right? And so as Christians, we need to lead the way while at the same time not letting this kind of stuff happen. There needs to be accountability. No more Christian Zionism. That's just ridiculous. That's insane. There's no such thing as Judeo-Christianity either. And again, we're going to be getting to that clip shortly where, again, whatever her name is, Caroline Levin, I always say her name wrong, but she had said that America was founded on Judeo-Christian values. It's like, not really.
Hey, the children's school.
But we'll watch this first.
As soon as we left that school,
the U.S. did this, allegedly.
بندرعباس نهمین روزیه که به ابتکار مرکز رسانه‌ای صفدیل معاونت علوم مرزی صدا و سیما ما میزبان خبرنگاران خارجی هستیم از کشورهای آمریکا، استرالیا، کانادا و توی دشمنان جمهوری اسلامی از امریکا و رژیم صهیونیستی
the Islamic Republic, ranging from the United States and the Israeli regime. Okay, that's so not true though. It's the other way around. I will say, when it comes to the Jews, I mean, yeah, they're oppressing everybody. And, you know, they're putting the Muslims and the Christians against each other. But ultimately, the Christians are being way, way, way more persecuted than Muslims. I don't hear Muslims having any issue. Muslims seem to, you know, they seem to be allowed to have their own epic city in Texas. Muslims, it seems to not be a problem when they want to have a Muslim-only community. Seems to not be a problem if we're going to have Chinatown, you know, in New York City and all of that. That's all fine. But what happens when white society wants to have their own neighborhood, you know? Well, it's like, oh, those really racist white people. It's like, yeah, well, maybe not. Maybe you're just foolish, right? Maybe you're not thinking. What Epstein coalition kink to kill children is this? Yeah, I mean, they're Satanists and they're Jews. part of their belief. Not all Jews, but part of the Noahide laws, part of the doctrines, the Talmud, and all of these things. This is a big part of what they believe. All life has value. Every life, every human life has value. And there's really no reason that we need to be treating one another like this. Yeah. Yeah, and see, now we're the ones. We're the enemies of the whole world because of Israel, really.
Only 2 days after they said they
And our
wouldn't be
own
getting
president.
involved anymore. Only an hour ago, Qatar
Breaking news,
said,
Qatari
quote,
has
"Our armed
rejoined the war
forces,
with
by the
Iran."
grace of God, successfully intercepted and neutralized all incoming Iranian drones. And this is massive news because only 2 days ago, reports came out that Qatar had paid Iran $6 billion for them not to be bombed. And at the same time, Qatar publicly came out and said that they have disassociated themselves from the war with Iran and they will no longer be getting involved.
Yeah, I mean, because that would be foolish, right? I mean, like the Saudis, like to side with the United States and Israel makes no sense as the Saudi royal family. Then again, it actually does, because the Saudi royal prince, the emperor, he actually is Jewish, and apparently one of his parents. But let's go on. All of these things matter because this is kind of what's impacting the entire grid, the entire chessboard of this war map that we're seeing today.
Has changed, and it seems we actually know why. Well, yesterday, the Ukrainian President Zelensky arrived in Saudi Arabia to sign deals with Saudi Arabia about air defense. We thought that that would be it. However, today, early this morning, he arrived in Qatar, the same country that just said they disassociated.
Yeah, I think Qatar is really shady, though, at the same time. Like, why are we taking money from Qatar? Why are U.S. journalists taking money from Qatar? Why does this appear to be a thing where some Congress people... It's like you either take money from Qatar or you take money from Israel. This is the complicated thing. What if you're James Fishback, for example? You're running for the Florida governor. Well, it's like, what happens if you are offered actually a substantial amount of money and it can actually help move your campaign forward? These are real questions. What happens when, regardless of who it is, you can put the situation and put the names where they need to go? But what happens when somebody offers you $200 million? Let's just say $250 million. Mr. Smith, I'll give you $250 million for your estate. How does that sound? It's like, are you going to say no? You're going to ask him to put the price up a little bit? No, you probably won't, right? And imagine sometimes you get more money out of it just based on whether or not you're willing to go along with the system. And those of us who aren't, well, we're doing this.
Themselves from the war. And he didn't arrive in Qatar for nothing. He arrived to provide Qatar with Ukrainian anti-drone systems to shoot down Iranian drones. And so it's believed that Iran looked at this and thought, you know what, maybe Qatar is just using this as an opportunity to build up and rebuild their military after taking so much damage in the last month.
Probably.
And so today, hours after Zelensky arrived, Iran launched a wave of drones at Qatar. Now, Qatar says they intercepted all of those drones. I read you the statement. But it seems that something big has changed now. Qatar, after only 2 days of not being involved in the war, appears to be involved again. And this just kind of cements the fact that every single day, something new happens which nobody expected in this war. And so that's why when people
So it makes you wonder, right? Like, you see all these bombs flying on Israel. It's like, how do they not know? They really think that they're actually the victims. Like, they see... their city getting bombed, and it's like, dude, you people, like what you did to the people of Gaza and Lebanon, like, seriously, your people really created a lot of problems for the world.
Something big
today in the modern world, at least.
After only 2 days of not being involved in the war, appears to be involved again. And this just kind of cements the fact that every single day, something new happens which nobody expected in this war. And so that's why when people say, do I think it's going to be over soon? I genuinely don't think I can answer that question. Every day.
Yeah, the information is changing every single day. Alex Jones update. This is a big deal. Congressional investigations confirm that the U.S. government, working with the UK and Israel, has been secretly funded and controlled Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and again, Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. I like to call it that. And now it's supposedly the Iraqi Syrian Intelligence Service, whatever. And other Islamic terror groups for decades. The USAID documents prove Senator John McCain and Lindsey Graham have been the bagman for the global Islamic Jihad for over 30 years. Graham's congressional challenger in South Carolina is now openly calling for his arrest and treason. So, let's take a look at this.
Are you aware that we are sending $40 million a week?
Again, this is Lindsey Graham's congressional challenger in the state of South Carolina. This is who's running against Lindsey Graham, the warmonger.
To the Taliban? Yes, sir. Can you name other instances of foreign aid going to terrorist organizations?
We're not going to watch the whole thing.
We have
Just watch in a few minutes.
Al-Shabaab in Somalia. There's been instances of the Hamzi network in Sudan, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah,
Hezbollah, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, all of these groups, 100% for sure, and ISIS, by the way. These 4 groups of terrorism were created by the state of Israel. And this does exist. This is like a special operations unit. These are like your black ops of Mossad. And really, they take the roles of these Syrian, military fighters, whatever. A Syrian guerrilla warfare team. Okay. Right. Yeah.
Hezbollah, Hayat Tahrir al-Shams in Syria. Dozens of terror organizations have received indirect assistance from U.S. foreign aid.
I'm wondering, with all this talk about the Strait of Hormuz and Parg Island and everything Lindsey's recommending, why are we listening to a traitor?
Yeah, he is a traitor. Lindsey Graham is a total traitor.
Be arrested for funneling money to Hamas and Al-Qaeda through USAID. He's helping to support the enemies of our nation, Steve. And it's time to arrest him. He's a traitor.
100%. So again, go follow Alex Jones on at Real Alex Jones on Twitter X. Israel attacked a power plant in Tehran. Iran retaliated and destroyed the biggest clean water plant in Israel. Big news. So let's just get the facts on this real quick. I just want to make sure I got the story right. Make sure that we saved the correct information, because we heard that we also heard that Iran's desalination plants were also targeted, which they're water plants, really. And apparently Israel's was. Okay, so that's interesting. Post claims Iran destroyed Israel's largest clean water distillation plant in retaliation for an Israeli strike on the Tehran power plant. But the attached video depicts a 2025 industrial explosion at a chemical facility in Azilza, Argentina, not a recent event. And I bet the Israelis were behind that. They've been burning down the forests there. On record, documented, they're literally sending these Israelis back to Israel and Argentina, for some reason not convicting them, because they're finding that these Israelis are coming into Argentina and they're starting to burn the fields. Like, not rake the fields, like they're like burning the fields. And because they want to buy up that land there. They want to take that land. They want to push everybody else out, take up that land. Misinformation amplifies real war tensions. So yeah, so we learned that this video was not real. So we learned that was, it was real, but it was more of just a, outdated video. Developing, El Salvador President Berkel made thousands of their prisoners start working to pay off their crimes in El Salvador. Yeah, I totally agree with this. If you're in you're running a prison. If you're running a really bad community, a really bad city, a really bad town, well, guess what? Everybody's got to be going to work. There has to be a system where people are going to work. There's commerce, there's functionality, there's organization, and let me tell you something. Just as a cop, I've seen the way a lot of people inside of the jail cell, just dealing with people who have arrested. And I'll tell you, it's just like people could use some more resources, books and, knowledge, especially, and actually this kind of setup. What I like about this, what I actually like about this, and again, being a criminal justice major, it kind of hits close to the heart, because you study all of these things that these world leaders are doing and, the psychological ramifications of what they're doing. What's interesting is that he has all of these, look at how organized this entire room is. It's an entire industrial warehouse, and you have just perfectly lined up, just lines and lines and lines of men working, And instead of shanking each other in the prison shower or whatever, maybe that happens still, but instead of those things happening frequently, instead of all the tribalism and gangs, these people are forced to work. Isn't that interesting too? In the United States prison system, a person who is incarcerated, they oftentimes, when it comes to prison, more speaking, prison is like usually longer than a year. Anything like jail is like under a year, right? And so when you look at these prisons today and you compare it to this, El Salvador, what are they doing right? Well, I like that he gives them a little bit of humanity, gives them a little outfit, You know, gives them a little costume or a little uniform, whatever you want to call it. But I think it's necessary too because they're not orange jumpsuits. Okay, so you know that's a whole argument. Like, oh yeah, well prisoners they have no rights. They gave up their rights when they did X, Y, Z. And it's like, yeah, absolutely, I agree with that. What I'm saying is that I think it's a class act to give your inmates comfortable clothes actually instead of clothes that make them quite literally feel like they are nobodies. But then at the same time, I'm very much a fan of that too, right? We need more of a hard line system like this. You got to put the people who are lazy to hard labor. They need to be thinkers. They need to be an analyst, whatever, but they got to do something. And you have these people who are getting taken out of gangs and these terrible places. And the one thing that seems to keep them in line is having a job and working, right? You see these people. And again, these are all like hard criminals. Hard criminals, they could never, really take care of their own lives outside of prison unless you have a prison system like this, where there's actually a system of rehabilitation. So as a criminal justice major myself, and I was in psychology of incarceration, I thought this was pretty neat. War update, historic night unfolding right now. This was last night. Missiles are raining down nonstop on Tel Aviv, intense, violent bombardment, all in direct response to the strikes on energy centers in Tehran. The Western mainstream media desperately tries to hide this information. Yep. So, more hits from Iran. Crazy. And then look at that cloud. Look at those smoke clouds. So this is the sad thing of war, right? U.S. military data shows 1,000% increase in conscientious objection applications since the war with Iran began. U.S. Marines are doing everything they can to avoid dying for Israel. Yeah, I think soldiers just need to go AWOL. They need to be willing to go up against their own government for this. All I know is if they tried to draft me in my house, that's not going to happen. You're not drafting me to go and fight and die for Israel. You will die before you take me out of my property. You will die. You'll die first. You'll never get me out of my property to force me to go and fight a war for Iran on behalf or for Israel on behalf of Israel. No. I would rather fight with the Iranian people against Israel than to watch Israel take over the United States, to take over Lebanon, to take over Gaza, to take over the entire world, just for everybody to be enslaved for the next century by a truly, what I believe to be an obviously genocidal race, obviously misled, obviously delusionary. There is a real lack of connection between the soul. There's something missing between the hypothalamus, perhaps. There is a lack of emotion. There is a lack of real sanctity of human life and feeling. And that is a real problem with the Israeli people. Fun fact, Israel illegally has a Jericho nuclear ballistic missile. Here are some random coordinates: 31.79290 degrees north, and then 34.87957 degrees east. And that is the S. Mika Air Base. Interesting. Look at that Google Earth image. Very interesting. Very interesting. Alex Barnicoat. Iran just bombed 6 American warships. All of them are sinking and could be the biggest embarrassment to U.S. Navy. So what do you guys think about this?
Iran just bombed 6 American warships. All of them are sinking, and this could be the biggest ever embarrassment to the U.S. Navy. Iran said, quote, "Our naval forces carried out an attack targeting U.S. and Israeli-linked positions in both Kuwait and the UAE." But it gets worse. Also in their statement, Iran announced they had targeted 6 American LCU warships in the port that they targeted in Kuwait. Wow. In fact, these attacks were so big that Iran says 3 of the warships are already sinking and another 3 are burning and on fire and completely out of commission. Something you need to know, though, is that these American...
Yeah, that was big news. The USS Gerald Ford did go out of commission. I thought that was pretty crazy.
Warships that have been hit and sunk are actually American LCU warships. That stands for Landing Craft Utility, and as the name suggests, it's the type of ships that America uses when they want to land soldiers on the beaches. And Iran says that they've destroyed 6 of them that were docked in Kuwait. And for comparison, the US only has 32. And so if the US is planning to launch a ground invasion, like reports suggest they will this week, this is a massive attack that could really stop the US from doing that. Iran here has destroyed almost 25% of the US's entire capability when it comes to
numbers kind of across the board, beside obviously, having the reserve currency.
And their landing craft
the United
ships
States.
with a flat bottom. But to be fair, even though this is such a massive attack, in just the last 24 hours, there's been some even bigger attacks. Iran has bombed a hotel in Dubai, housing US soldiers. As well as that, Iran said these attacks caused, quote, a large number of American soldiers. They also bombed an airbase in Saudi Arabia, not only destroying multiple aircraft, but also injuring 15 American soldiers there.
Wow.
In the last 24 hours, America has taken more damage than they have in the entire war, probably combined. Iran has launched some massive attacks, and as I've said today, they've just destroyed 6 of America's 32 landing craft warships. And this is massive news, probably some of the biggest news of the war so far. And so, let me know what you think, and leave me a follow.
So insane. Diplomat resigns after leaking UN preparing for possible nuclear strike on Iran. People do not understand the gravity. Nuking 10 million people, regular working class people with dreams. Only the people can stop it. Act now. History will remember it. And again, this is from a member of the UN, Mohammed Safa. He says, I don't think people understand the gravity of the situation as the UN is preparing for possible nuclear war with use in Iran. This is a picture of Tehran. For you uneducated, untraveled, never served war hawks licking your chops at the thought of bombing it, it's not the low population desert. These are families, children, family pets, regular working class people with dreams. You're sick to want war, and I agree. Tehran is a city of nearly 10 million people. Imagine nuking Washington, Berlin, Paris, London, or beyond, bombed with nuclear weapons. Yeah, I agree. I gave up my diplomatic career to leak this information. I suspended my duties so as not to be a part or a witness to the crime against humanity in an attempt to prevent a nuclear winter before it is too late. Yesterday, nearly tens of millions of people protested no canes in the United States. The possibility of war of nuclear weapons must be taken very seriously. It's very dangerous. Act now. Spread the information and this message worldwide. Take to the streets. Protest for our humanity in the future. Only the people can stop it. History will remember it. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Yeah, lots of big stuff happening. Israeli media reports that if the United States carries out a ground operation in Iran, it would have to go alone, with Israeli forces not participating on the ground. Aren't you surprised? Isn't it so surprising that the Israeli people would never want to fight their own war? Israel destroyed a mausoleum of Simon Peter, Apostle of Christ, and the village of Shama in southern Lebanon. 1,925 to 1,995 years old. Christians of the world, wake up. Crazy. So, yeah, I mean, this is where they basically, they didn't let anybody stay. They're not letting anybody stay there right now, pretty much, just because it's getting bombed and because, their reason is just they really don't want Christians around in general, the Israelis. Breaking, urgent, the double attack has now begun from multiple fronts, from Iran, Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen against Israel. God, it's so wild to watch these videos because it honestly feels like we've been just waiting for this moment for a long time. And when I say that, not like in an excited way, like we've been waiting for this for all of this to culminate. And we've been just waiting for all of this to come into fruition because you could see the writing on the wall for years back if you were really paying attention. And now it's like before my own eyes, I'm seeing everything I really expected to see with this entire geopolitical landscape. Yeah, we need to end End the wars. End unnecessary wars. End mass migration, especially. We need mass remigration back to their countries. And then we would have a happy place. We'd never have to worry about war, would we? Crazy. So wild. Massive breaking war update. U.S. ground invasion starting soon. 3,500 U.S. troops officially arrive in the Middle East as the U.S. prepares for a ground invasion in Iran. I feel sorry for these U.S. soldiers giving their lives for Israel. Yeah, me too. Me too.
500 troops, including... Yeah, hey guys, good morning. After 4 weeks of war in the Middle East, the conflict grinds on. Reports indicate the United States is preparing for a possible weeks-long ground operation in Iran that would include thousands of U.S. service members. Over the weekend, the USS Tripoli, manned with 3,500 troops, including 2,500 Marines, arrived in the CENTCOM area of operation.
Not good.
If an operation is ordered to seize Iranian oil facilities or enriched uranium, it's expected that both special forces and conventional forces would be used.
Yep.
This comes as the United States and Israel launched a
But they're going to be sitting ducks, right?
series of strikes against Iranian military infrastructure over the weekend, including hitting Iran's nuclear development facilities.
In Operation Rising Lion, we hit very hard the entire chain of nuclear production in Iran. We hit everything from the production
You mean the United States did it for you?
capabilities in the factories, all the components, to the centrifuges and beams, and so on. The entire production chain was hit. It was affected. It was delayed, but it was not completely destroyed.
With the Israelis looking east, they're also looking north, where early Saturday an IDF soldier from Connecticut was killed in southern Lebanon by a Hezbollah rocket. His name was Moshe Katz, and he was 22 years old.
Aw, that's horrible. That's
Yeah, hey,
just
guys.
so horrible. Nothing is respected anymore, not even the holy specular. Outrageous images show occupying forces targeting Palestine Christians right in the heart of Jerusalem. In the face of this violence, the Vatican is no longer silent. Israel's ambassador has now been summoned. Netanyahu is trying to claim that, oh, it's because there was shrapnel from a bomb that nearly hit the church, but it never did hit the church.
القدس المحتلة في بداية أشهر رمضان المبارك كل ذلك فقط للمنع الفلسطينيين من المشاركة في وصول الكشافة إلى استقبال النور الذي سيخرج من داخل الكنيسة لينتقل من القدس المحتلة وكنائسها إلى كل الأراضي الفلسطينية.
When I watch this video, you want to know what I think? I think about how enraged I think about how enraged the Israeli people are today and how much vengeance they have for things that happened thousands of years ago. And what do you think this is going to do to the Gazans and the Palestinians who are now being genocided the same way that the Jews did? In their own words, the Jews believe that they were genocided during the Holocaust and all these terrible things were done to them. But then they're doing the same thing to the Palestinians. They're doing the same thing to Lebanon, Gaza. And so there needs to be the fact that that's addressed. There needs to be like a real conversation.
العالم. إذا هذا هو المشهد هنا في يوم سبت النور في القدس المحتلة، قمع واعتداء على المصلين ومنعهم من القيام بأبسط حقوقهم الدينية. جبال بوديري، الجزيرة، القدس المحتلة.
Yeah, and they hate Al Jazeera there too. They're not a fan of it. Little clip from Russell Brand on the Second Amendment exists for exactly this reason. I thought this was great.
Armed. You think, well, if
a great soundbite from a Brit.
When I came to this country, I didn't realize the significance of weapon ownership. Now I do, because it changes people to know that you're armed. You think, well, if it all comes down to it, I can at least have a gunfight on the way out. Whereas in the UK, you're already in the situation they want you in, which is without any defense. They can and are just doing what they want.
Yes, this is precisely the importance of the Second Amendment. You must have a means to protect yourself. That's why you need to have a Second Amendment. You need to have a right to keep and bear arms like the United States of America. Because if you don't, you'll end up like the UK, where they're essentially just being conquered right now because they're an unarmed society. And now you have rapes happening at record record levels. You have stabbings happening like crazy in the UK. It's just bloody. And as they like to say, it's very bloody. It's a bloody tragedy. But it's true. Literally, it is a bloody tragedy in the UK because of the illegal immigration.
British police, except for that very good-looking police woman that actually did seem to know the law quite recently and went, hey, no, people are allowed to protest in that way. This is not how to run a country. This is not how to run a world, man. You need to be in control of your own individual life, in control of your own family,
Guns and
under
ammo.
the authority of higher purpose, a higher purpose ordained by
Guns, ammo, and Christ. The end of the day is really all one needs. Iran shows missiles racing at Israel's Niat Havav industrial zone. Area went into total blackout. Look at that. Watch U.S. A-10 Thunderbolt striking the headquarters of Kataib Saeed al-Shahada, an Iranian Bat PMF brigade in Mosul. Iran won't be conquered. The U.S. will have to remove its bases. Former U.S. Congressman Dennis Kucinich. There is no victory. Iran will not be defeated. Iran will not be conquered. It is folly to even think about it.
In the Trump administration. We haven't seen any other resignations. Do you think the team around Trump, let alone Trump himself, understand all of that? How it's affecting the poor, these decisions?
I think the team around Trump is disserving him, they've led him to believe that there is...
It's because it is because Trump was in the Epstein files, and basically they are controlling him now. They own him, they own Trump, they control Trump, because of the things he did that were in the Epstein files. And apparently there's, according to, what's his name? I always forget his name. CIA guy. Another CIA guy. John something. He's new on X. I can't remember his last name. I can never think of it. But he was talking a lot about the same issue.
Some victory to be achieved in this. There is no victory. Iran will not be defeated. Iran will not be conquered. It is folly to even think about it. Those who think about it never don't know anything about the Persian culture. They don't know anything about the Iranian people. They don't know anything about geography. They don't know anything about how Iran has prepared for decades for the moment of a full-scale or any type of invasion of their country. So, this is a moment
nothing yet.
when if we send troops to Karg Island and nearby islands off the Iranian coast to try to facilitate the opening up of Hormuz Strait. It's already open, but to open it up for American and Israeli interests, our troops could get massacred.
Yeah, they could.
The drones, the missiles, the armaments that...
We'll be lucky if Iran doesn't. Because honestly, it's like if I was Iran and if Trump has been saying we're going to send U.S. troops to the Strait of Hormuz in 2 weeks, I'd be like, really? I think he might have said that like 4 weeks ago. And he mentioned exactly what they were going to do. And so Trump is like giving away all the plans already. The Chinese have the intelligence on all of the, Overwatch and basically all of the military recon over our bases and everything. They have all these spy planes that are basically watching everything that's going on, all of our movements, studying the data, transferring back to Beijing and Hong Kong. And essentially, we're stuck basically in this war, not knowing what to do next, and we're not prepared for this war. And we also have not prepared over the past, since the last war.
That Iran possesses, and we're on the visiting team here. It is, to me, it is the height of dishonor for an American administration to send young men and women to their certain deaths.
Yeah, Normandy.
in this case.
Except the only difference between this and the beach of Normandy is that the beach of Normandy was actually, there was something there. There was like some kind of victory. There was some reason. But this is going to be a bloodbath and with no reward. Just a
there will
sad
be high
day in history,
casualties.
like 9/11.
And I if we do this, and I am
I think that's the
unalterably
plan.
opposed.
I think that's the plan. I think they want to take out U.S. troops on these boats and out there in the Strait of Hormuz. They want to take these people down so then they can use this as a precursor to get involved in this war with Iran, to get the people backing it. And it won't take much. Once you see enough U.S. troops die because of this war that Trump got us into, then basically you're going to see everybody side with the Jews against the Muslims. And we can only hope that doesn't happen, because right now it's just the Jews are kind of oppressing both ethnocentricities and races, the Muslims and the Christians particularly. So they're kind of and they're also setting them against each other while the Jews are profiting right now. So these things are happening, and that is a real fact. Netanyahu was caught for $30 million in misappropriated funds going to cigars and, good times, basically. And we'll be looking into that too as well. I think we're almost there in the post.
To everything this administration is doing with respect to Iran, it has started with one lie after another, and Iran will never trust the United States. Iran, on the other hand, will dictate the terms of this settlement. It's clear to see that the U.S., as a result of this, will have to remove its bases from the region, and that's just the beginning of the effects on the U.S. position geopolitically here.
Yeah. So that's kind of the situation there. What do you guys think? What do you guys think of my one-person audience, which is me? On 2026, on March 16th, 2026, we informed clients about widespread GPS/GNSS jamming conducted by the UAE to redirect inbound projectiles. At the time, the defensive perimeter they established was visible through AIS data. Yesterday, however, we tagged over 300 tankers on satellite imagery and observed no evidence of GPS jamming. We believe this shift may be linked to efforts to verify which vessels are authorized to transit the Strait of Hormuz. Thomas Massey, I thought this was a good post too. Imagine a world where hard work was rewarded, truth and justice prevail in the courtrooms, and government doesn't steal your labor by debasing the currency. Bureaucrats aren't captured by corporations, and our taxes go toward critical infrastructure instead of wars overseas. Totally. Yep, and again, Israel has bombed a university.
If I tell you about it, I could go to jail. And I'm not exaggerating, because I've exposed what Israel has been doing
One more
these
clip
last
from Alex
4
here.
weeks of war. I've been threatened almost every single day. And not threatened a little bit. I've been told I could go to jail because of some of the stuff I've said, for literally exposing, quote, national security secrets. That's not an exaggeration, and we just got a report that Israel has bombed 2 universities in Iran, and possibly hundreds of civilians, school students, are dead. And this could genuinely be the nail in the coffin. I could be arrested for telling you it, but I think it's the right thing to do. And I actually cover the news like this in general because I think it's the right thing to do. But it doesn't come without its consequences. The last 2 years of work I put into growing on TikTok just got taken away. My account just got banned at about 400,000 followers.
Except I don't have that many followers. That sucks. But we had an account that also got that was also political, and it got taken down.
But I think bringing the news to you guys is important, and I still want to do it because I think it's the right thing to do. But sadly, and if you've watched the videos for a while, you probably know, but that TikTok account was actually one of our last sources of income. I bring you guys about 10 to 12 news videos every single day. This is literally my full-time job, bringing you the news. But as well as that, we've got employees we've got to pay, people who are on the ground in these countries so I can bring you factual news, as well as editors, researchers, scripters, etc. All of this to bring you the best, most factual news possible. But sadly, we can't afford to do that anymore because of what happened to TikTok.
Yeah, donate to this kid's account. Alex Barnicoat, he's a great analyst. He is a great journalist too. So Support his account, Alex Barnico.
Banned, we now have no income, meaning I can't afford to make
The link will
videos
be
for
in
you
the
guys.
post
We
of
do
this.
have a little bit of income, and it's thanks to donations from you guys who watch the videos. And it's super helpful, but I've got to be honest, it's sadly not really enough to fund everything. We can fund a little bit, but we might have to really slow down the amount of content we're making. And so this is kind of my last appeal to you guys.
Yeah,
if
so
you enjoy
definitely-
watching the news videos and you
So
want
definitely
me to
help
make
this
more
kid
of
out,
them,
help this kid grow. It's alexbarnicoat.com, and then definitely donate to his page. I know I like to donate a little bit. To wrap up today's episode, because I am tired and I need some sleep. The only reason why the Catholic is orderly and has stood by the test of time is because the church was founded by Jesus Christ himself. This is why even a corrupt pope or a bad priest cannot bring the church. The Catholic Church is true.
So that
I love
not
this
even
edit.
Judas is not made by me or by the Pope, but by Christ. If the church had not been founded by Christ, it would have fallen to pieces long ago.
Right.
But because Christ founded the church will stand. He gave it divine guarantee. He said, I will be with you always until the end of time. So that not even Judas Iscariot could pull down the church.
Not even Judas.
And even if you get a pope who is not a good pope, or a bishop who is not a good bishop, or a priest who is not a good priest, they cannot pull down the church. But they can do damage.
That's right.
But they can't pull it down because the church is founded by Christ.
My heart goes out to you, Pope. My heart goes out to you.
Is not made by me or by the Pope, but by Christ.
And with that being said, that's all I have to say for the rest of this episode. I am tired. I need some sleep. I need some rest. It's been a busy week for me, been a busy weekend for me. Again, we're focusing on real estate. We're focusing on Gold Shark Media AI. I also got a little bit sick this past weekend, so I am exhausted. Need a nap, need some sleep, but we'll see what happens. We'll be back tomorrow. What do you think about the Iran war? What do you think about everything that's going on in the markets? What do you guys think about what's happening with Israel taking over Hezbollah, with all of these things, with Netanyahu? Is he dead? Is he alive? Right? Big conversations on that. How are you handling the PSYOP and how all of it is going down? You tell me. So be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe. That's the end of this analysis for the night. And see you tomorrow at 11 a.m. for a market update. And if I don't swing it then we'll do the market update at tomorrow, 7 p.m. here on Ecker Geopolitics. But follow the business news and AI channel over on Brendan Ecker. And it's just Brendan Ecker, BrendanEcker. And with that being said, I got nothing else. Stay prudent, stay powerful,